Hello and welcome to another edition of the Brazilian Report live on YouTube. This week we're talking about yet another change in command at Petrobras, Brazil's massive government-controlled oil company. We'll look at what went wrong for the outgoing CEO, the government's hand in all this, and who's coming in as the replacement. My name's Euan Marshall, editor of the Brazilian Report, and I'm joined today by our editor-in-chief, Gustavo Ribeiro, who's been keeping a very close eye on all the latest developments in Petrobras. Gustavo, hello.
Hey, Euan, how are you?
And just before we get down to the meat and bones of this discussion, I'd just like to take a minute to invite you to subscribe to the Brazilian Report, which is the journalistic engine behind these videos, our Explaining Brazil podcast, and much more. As an independent media outlet, our entire funding model is based on subscriptions. So please, if you like what you hear, check out Brazilian.report/subscribe and have a look at our membership options. The plans start from as little as $3 and change a month, and we've even got a no strings attached free trial there. So please check that out. Okay, so let's get down to business here with Petrobras. Gustavo, first, let's just sum this up. What's happened?
So yes, President Jair Bolsonaro has yet again fired a CEO for Petrobras. I mean, we say that coaches in the Brazilian league, they get fired almost every week. It's similar to what's happening to Petrobras right now.
Worse even.
Yes, arguably worse, because this CEO that is, I mean, we cannot say former CEO because he's still in place, but his era, let's say, has lasted 40 days until last night on Monday night, the government informed that it will recommend the Petrobras board, which is controlled by the government, to name a new chief executive officer. And that is mainly because Brazil, I mean, as everywhere in the world, is experiencing a boom in fuel prices. This is something that is really eating up families' purchasing power. A tank of gas, a 50-liter standard tank of gas, is costing about a third of the minimum wage. And since the beginning of the pandemic, for instance, gasoline prices have risen by 60%, more than 60%, and diesel prices have risen by 80%. So it is something that it is considered critical for Brazilian families. Male voters more focused on fuel prices. Female voters very focused as well on cooking gas prices, because most Brazilian households are led by women, and this is one of a key expense for households. We have reported that poor families are having to resort to alcohol, normal alcohol to cook, and that has led to accidents because a lot of them cannot pay for canisters.
Yeah, extremely dangerous that you'll set your kitchen on fire if you try to cook with alcohol. But basically, I mean, you've explained that the kind of background to this is the rising fuel prices in Brazil, but what exactly explains this kind of musical chairs scenario at Petrobras? Like, is changing the CEO actually going to do anything?
Not in itself, but the thing is, so we have presidential elections coming in October. President Bolsonaro is trailing former President Lula, so he has to recover ground. He not only he has to defend his position and not lose votes to other candidates in a way that could maybe allow Lula to have a first round win, but he has to regain a lot of ground. Second round simulations show Lula ahead by as much as 20 points. So very uncomfortable situation for Bolsonaro. And inflation is on Brazilians. It's the top of mind issue for Brazilian voters right now. So as we said, fuel prices are essential expenses for many households, and it has driven a lot voter behavior. So for instance, last year in February, I'm sorry, the government, Petrobras, announced a massive hike in fuel prices. A couple of days later, the CEO, Roberto Castelo Branco, was fired. Then in March of this year, Petrobras announced a huge fuel hike. I remember it was on March 10th, 11th, and 2 days, a couple of weeks later, the CEO Joaquim Silvio Luna was fired. Then 2 weeks ago, Petrobras announced a new price hike in diesel prices, almost 9% in refineries, which has an almost immediate ripple effect at the pump. 2 days later, the mines and energy minister was fired, and then he was the one backing the Petrobras CEO, José Mauro Coelho. And once he lost his main ally or his only ally in the administration, his situation became untenable. And on May 23rd, less than 2 weeks later, the writing was put on the wall that he will not remain as the CEO.
Yeah. Oh, well, what we're going to get into next, I think we're going to look at who's coming in to Petrobras, who the new CEO is going to be. But just before we get into that topic, I'd just like to give another shout out for the Brazilian report. For years now, we've been producing quality, independent content on Brazil in English and covering some of the most turbulent moments of the country's history. And we rely on subscriptions. So please, check out Brazilian.report/subscribe. See which one of our membership plans really take your fancy there. And if you're already a subscriber, you can also support us, support our journalists directly by donating on Buy Me a Coffee. And that's at buymeacoffee.com/Brazilian report. That's all one word at the end there. We've also set up a membership platform there. So that's for monthly supporters. That gets you access to a bunch of different perks, like you get exclusive newsletters, behind the scenes info, you get a shout out on our Explaining Brazil podcast, and you can even ask us questions about Latin America or Brazil, any burning issue that you want to know more about in the region. You can let us know and we'll answer that the best way we can. So let's get back to this, Gustavo. We don't yet have a new CEO, but who is this name that the government are putting forward to take over Petrobras?
So yes, the Mines and Energy Ministry said it will name Caio Mário Paes de Andrade. He is the current debureaucratization secretary within the Economy Ministry, which is kind of a win for Economy Minister Paulo Guedes. This past 3.5 years have been quite frustrating for him because he's a libertarian economist with a Chicago background, and the Bolsonaro administration has been anything but libertarian. But now he has the Mines and Energy minister who is someone of his trust, and the soon to become Petrobras CEO is also a man of his trust. Now, it's not necessarily certain that Andrade will become the next CEO because he has to be confirmed by the board. And even if the board, the government holds most of the seats, Brazil has a law in place to govern how state-controlled companies have to operate. And the law demands that for executive positions, people have at least 10 years of experience in that field of expertise in which the company operates. So in this case, oil and gas, or have worked 4 years in a top level position, a C-level position in another company of this area. And Andrade simply doesn't check the boxes. He's a communications major. He has postgraduate degrees in administration and management. So it's not to say that he has he would be a poor CEO. It's just that he doesn't fit the criteria that the law establishes, that specifically to say that one must have bona fide credentials in the oil and gas industry, and he doesn't have. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean his name will not be approved, because Joaquim Silvio Luna, who was the CEO between March of last year and April of this year, he also didn't quite check the boxes. He had experience as the head of Itaipu, a binational hydropower dam that Brazil shares with Paraguay, but only for 2 years. So he didn't exactly fit the bill, but his name passed. So, I mean, it remains to be seen. Minority shareholders could litigate, and some are already threatening to do so if push comes to shove. So we're going to have to wait and see. But regardless, it's a bad look for Petrobras.
Yeah, I mean, I remember reading in this morning's newsletter that the future stocks for Petrobras were not looking too good for today on the New York Stock Exchange. Is that what we're going to expect for the next couple of days? You know, is this Petrobras shares perhaps in trouble?
I mean, they have been on Tuesday's trading session. They opened at down 3 to 4%. So yes, we have talked to a few experts on infrastructure and oil and gas and on public management, and they have been unison to say that this is a bad signal that the government is sending, because it's not necessarily just because of the fact that they're jettisoning a lot of CEOs. It's going to be the fourth in just 14, 15 months. But also in regards of the signals that it sends on the company's pricing policy in the future.
Okay, so I think we'll leave that for there today, Gustavo. Thanks so much for the insight, and we'll be sure to follow all the coming developments in Petrobras on our website, Brazilian.report. And, you know, there's already a bunch of articles there in our Petrobras archives for you to sink your teeth into. So all that remains to say is thanks for watching. Be sure to check out the Brazilian Report on social media and Brazilian.report, and we will see you next time. Thanks very much.